Module 19, Network Security and Troubleshooting. Security, security, security. It's everywhere, it's everywhere, it's everywhere. We're going to look at securing a workstation, manage a browser, all those pieces. Let's look at a multifunctional router. We've looked at routers and setting things up in the past. We've done little labs on creating a routed network in Packet Tracer. We're going to look at troubleshooting network commands, one of which, yes, you're right, ipconfig /all, number one troubleshooting command next to ping. Okay, so how do we do securing a browser? Well, it has some suggestions here. You want to manage your extensions. Don't install extensions that you don't need. You can sync data across devices. You can use Google Chrome to do that, or Edge, or anything. That's very convenient. There are built-in password managers in browsers, and those are convenient. You just have to know one password, and then you don't have to know the rest of them. Do you have to use pop-up blockers or ad blockers? So here, I'm not sure I agree. Pop-ups are not anything like they used to be 5, 6, 7 years ago. As long as you're safe, as long as you have safe surfing habits and go to chancy websites, you're not going to get pop-ups. Now, ad blockers, yeah, I kind of like those. I have one in, can't remember what it's called. I have one in each of my browsers, and when I go in a browser that doesn't have an ad blocker, there it is, it's ABP, AdBlock Plus. It's a free one. Does a pretty good job of keeping the ads away and still allowing you to go to the site. Some sites I want to get to do require ads, but then you're kind of going into the chancy area. But I know that the sites I'm going into are legitimate. They're just trying to make money. It doesn't hurt to clear your cache and browsing data every so often. In fact, I installed a little, is this the guy here? Here he is. I installed a little cache cleaner that cleans the cache every time I log in. Do I clear everything? Well, not particularly do you have to, but I clear at least the browser's cache every time I go in. That can help with active sites, which every site we have is active, everything we do. But one of the number one things that I tell people to do when they're having trouble in MindTap or Blackboard is clear their browser cache. Well, in this case, I'm clearing it every time. I've not used privacy browsing myself. Some people have, some people don't. It's a good idea. Make sure that you have secure connections, sites, valid certificates. Make sure your browser is up to date, whatever it is. Interestingly enough, Chrome, Edge, and Firefox all use the same baseline code base, Chromium, for their browsers. They're just a little bit different. Well, where you clear all the browsing data each time you close the browser is going to be different on each browser. And in my case, I just happened to find this little tool. I'm sure there's a way to do this in Firefox. I only use Firefox because I've used Firefox forever. There's nothing wrong with Google Chrome. I don't know, I've had issues here and there with Edge, but it is better than it used to be. Much of what browser you use has to do with your preference. I know that Blackboard is supposed to be compatible with all three. So to this point, I've had no trouble with Blackboard on any one of those major browsers. Yeah, Internet Explorer is gone. I mean, it's deprecated. I haven't had to use Internet Explorer to access an old website in a long time. I think it's still there, but I really don't care because it's old and old and old and old. Do we have proxy servers in any place that we go to? You can do a local proxy server, which may or may not speed up your surfing experience. Internet access is so fast that it really, are you going to gain anything by using a proxy server? And that begs the question of what is a proxy server? So let's do a proxy server, let's spell it right, image showing proxy server. I want an image that shows me what it looks like. Let's see, image. Yeah, there we go. That's a good one. That'll work. Let's open this in a new tab. Where is it? New tab. Okay, it's not very big. But Let's zoom in on it a little bit. There we go. So here are you, and normally we connect directly to the internet or to your network, to the internet. So this does not affect your local network. And normally you go from here and go directly to the internet. Well, what a proxy does is it acts for you, right? A proxy vote means you're having somebody else vote for you. So when you make a request, if you have a proxy on your network, you make the request to the proxy makes the request to the internet, brings it back, stores it for a certain amount of time on the proxy server, and then you retrieve your information from there. Can a proxy server on your network make a difference? I don't know if you could measure that or not. That's interesting. What it does is it conserves bandwidth. It also allows the proxy to look at packets and say, this looks like a virus. We should delete it. This looks like a bad URL. Now in D1, I don't have a proxy server that stores information, but in order to detect viruses and bad URLs when you're surfing the internet, it has to read clear up to the application layer. So it puts the packet together, determines is this packet okay, and then it passes it on. So in effect, my firewall at D1 is a proxy server, but it doesn't really a proxy server. It proxies the HTTP traffic. It looks at the entire packet, and then it lets it send on. It's not a direct connection. So that's a safety feature that's not unusual in many business routers to have that. All right, let's exit the drawing mode. Where's there he is. So could you set up one internally for yourself? Sure. There's all kinds of open source one. I just have never done it. Oh, yes, I did. There's a program called Pi-hole, which is a little program for a Raspberry Pi that is a proxy server. And it also blocks ads and stuff. And what I found is it was just a bit aggressive and hard to tune. And I finally gave up on it. I tried it in D1 for a little bit, and it kept blocking our Cengage websites. And I discovered that an ad blocker does almost as well. I may revisit that at some point, maybe not, but that's a free one. If you have a Raspberry Pi, or you can run it as a virtual machine. That's what I was doing in D1. But you can also run it as a Raspberry Pi, on a Raspberry Pi. All right, well, we know about hashes, right? Hash is a one-way trip. When you log into a site, your password is hashed. The hash is passed over a secure connection. The other side of the site looks at that hash and compares it to the hash that's on your computer. And we've done a little bit with hashing. If you don't remember hashing, let's take a look at it. Here's a little hashing program I wrote called Hashy, Hash Calculator. Couldn't figure out another way to say calculator with an H, but I'm sure I can come up with one. I like alliterations. So hashing will take our plain text, and this happens on your computer automatically. You don't have to do anything for it. And when it computes the hash, now the hash we typically use right now is this guy. This one. Oh, I need to have some way to copy and paste these, don't I? That's a good idea. So this is the hash using SHA-56. This is a one-way trip. This is a very common one to be used. If I change just one character in my word, look at the length. Whoops, that's opening a text file, sorry. Yeah, I should have compute hashes up here, shouldn't I? Okay. So notice that the length is exactly the same, but the hash is entirely different. Take out one character, regenerate it, completely different, but yet the same length. So there's no way to tell how long your letters are, how long your stuff is, because the hash is always the same length and it's unique for every combination of characters. One thing to note about hashes is you cannot reverse them. You cannot take this hash and reverse it. All right, so there we go. SHA-256 is our typical one. This is deprecated, meaning it's old and it doesn't work anymore. So any web browser, are we using hashes? Well, let's take a look. Here we are. We're on a secure site, right? We're verified by Amazon. I'm on Blackboard, and they use Amazon as their security provider, their certificate provider. And see, it's showing my does not provide ownership information. It's verified by Amazon. Look it down here, SHA 256. This is a pretty typical connection encryption. It's using TLS 1.2. So this is what's called an encryption suite, meaning there are several pieces that work together to encrypt your connection. And it does have SHA 256 because part of encryption is being able to take something and generate a unique value that cannot be reversed. So there it is. It makes it difficult. It's unlikely someone's going to read this. Yep, that's correct. Look at how many times I've visited Blackboard. Holy smokes, I don't know how long that's been in there for, but I guess I use Blackboard quite a bit. Anyway, in security, you have to trust somebody. There has to be a chain of trust, and at some point you just have to trust somebody. Well, we're assuming that we trust Amazon. And then Amazon verifies that Blackboard is okay. In our browser, we have a certificate that says, yep, Amazon is okay. And so we both trust Amazon, and that's how we create our secure connection. It's like a secure handshake or a secret handshake. All right, so that's a bit about encryption. You really can't change anything about it. Just make sure that you don't download Uncle Joe's Happy Browser. Use the name brand ones, like the three main ones are Edge, Google Chrome, and Firefox. Firefox is still in there. There's other ones, I think Opera, there's some other ones, but make sure you're downloading something that's, oh, here's a hash generator. There's websites where you can generate your own hashes. So VPN, there's a couple different types of VPNs. This is one type of VPN, which I use at home to connect up to my firewall in D1 so that I can work on that network from home. I can update the servers. In fact, I just did that this last week. There was a new Microsoft update, so I connected remotely to my firewall in D1 and updated all the servers, and I didn't have to go anywhere. So my VPN connection doesn't use the built-in one. It is a program that I downloaded. My firewall is a FortiGate firewall, and of course they have a Forti client that allows me to make that connection. But once that virtual private network connection is made, I'm effectively on that network, and that's very convenient. Anyone who does server administration or IT or works on switches and stuff, they rarely go physically to the location. My server class a couple weeks ago put in a new server in there, and that's the last time we have to go in the room. We put it together, we made sure it worked, we installed the operating system, that's it. They and I are doing everything else remotely. You don't have to sit in a server room, you sit at your desk. You sit at home in your pajamas, like I am right now. I'm doing this in the morning, and I haven't changed out of my pajamas yet. Nobody knows. Now, the other type of VPN connection that you hear about, and people are really concerned about using it, and I think it's just a little bit paranoid unless you're surfing for really bad things. So a VPN can be, in this case, they're talking about VPNs that protect your online privacy. But the idea is the same. Oh, here's a good one. I figure it's not worth the effort, unless, you're doing, like, you're the government or something, but there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with being paranoid. So there's your user device. Your VPN client connects up. It connects up to a VPN server, which then shows your IP address coming from France or someplace, or wherever, and it anonymizes all your information so that when it hits the internet and talks to a server, it has no idea where it came from, which can cause trouble with authentication sometimes. Authentication can use something called geofencing, using IP addresses, and if your IP address suddenly appears from France, well, you may have to re-authenticate and do some mumbo-jumbo extra. Is it a good idea? If you're paranoid, it is. I personally don't use it, which doesn't mean that if you're using it, there's nothing wrong with it. Just realize that sometimes you're going to have trouble and you may have to turn off your VPN. but it's the same idea. You're making a private connection from here to here, and nobody can read the information in between. It's a virtual private network, meaning the network does not really exist. Many of you have used hotspots. So that's basically what this is. We don't have SIM cards and all that sort of thing. And I've not seen cellular connections on, laptops. Sometimes I've seen that. But quite often now, most people just use hotspots instead of using a cellular connection on the laptop because it's more convenient because everybody can connect to it. Now, you might be using a cell phone network for internet. Beware of using up all your data. That's basically what this is. So there's different types of firewalls. Yes, yes, yes. Everybody has some sort of a hardware firewall that basically is one-way glass. You can go out, but people can't come in unless you invite them. A network software firewall is going to look at things a little more closely, or like a more enterprise firewall. So my firewall at D1 looks at the packets. It says, oh, is this a virus? Is this something bad? Should I reject it? My firewall at home here just says, yep, come on in. You invited them. Now, this part, yes, Windows and all other operating systems have their own personal firewalls. So you can see how many layers there are to protect. And in security, layers are good. If it gets past one, then the attack should get stopped somewhere else. This can lead to sometimes troubleshooting to get a network to be configured properly, because maybe your firewall on your machine is preventing something from running that you want to run. So yes, you thought there was just a little bit about security. There's all kinds of things about security. We're going to move on to that. IoT devices, that's a whole new thing now. Our houses are filled with Internet of Things devices. It used to be when I had students do scans of their networks, they'd have maybe a couple PCs and a laptop, maybe a printer, that's it. Well, now I see 20 to 30 different devices, from Alexas to smart speakers to thermostats. I've even got like 13 or 14 things by myself at home. So things have changed, and one threat vector is hacking those IoT devices. So my rule of thumb for setting up any device is always change the defaults. Never keep a default setting of any type, especially the password, because every device you buy, there's hundreds of sites where you can look up that default password. And you can see this is kind of like the thing that we did. We've done our networks with all kinds of, little pieces in there. Most of the time, you may have you may have like a smart home device that connects to various devices. Quite a few of us just have independent devices that connect up directly to the router. This is if you're managing several devices from one station, from one bridge. So all my devices at home are all independent. They're not managed by a central source. They all connect directly to the router. But it depends. If you have a home, I guess they just call it a home network sort of thing, then you can manage it all from one place. And you can get home network software that will allow you to manage it all from one place. All right, so how do you secure IoT devices? Well, of course, with anything, avoid public networks. When you have somebody coming in, set up a guest network on your router. Almost all routers have a guest network, which isolates them from your network with all your IT devices. Always change things. It says do not connect these things to your voice assistant. Well, I kind of find that fun, but it says don't do that. So it's always a balance between fun and being secure. Keep everything up to date. Number one rule, check to make sure things are up to date. Make sure you have WPA2 encryption. At this point is still the one we want. WPA3 is being implemented, but not everything supports it yet, but it will. I'm not sure how you purge the data. I'd have to look that one up. Might not be a bad idea, because all that data is kept by everybody. That's big data, and supposedly they use it anonymously. And even anonymously, they can target ads. You're doing a search on Google one place, and then suddenly you go to Facebook or TikTok or whatever, and you get ads of what you were looking for. Well, is that convenient? I don't know. It's a bit privacy infringing to me. So routers, stop here and keep going with another video.